Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Fair Life once again. It is Monday evening, a week before Halloween. So, wow, the year has just flown by, and craziness as always. And we're getting close to election day too. So, wow, I'm going to have to over this week. I'm going to have to jump in and do an early election because I'm going to be on the road and over in Louisiana next month. So I'm going to have to do early voting. Uh, it's one of those things that when you're on the road, you kind of have to worry about a lot because voting can be a challenge. I mean, you either have to do early voting if you happen to be in the state or mail in, and usually pretty consistently. It's a lot of times you're out of state during that period. Kind of a strange thing. But hello, everyone. Hello. Let's see. I think comments are working for me. So Jan and Damaris and Gwendolyn and Kurt and uh, Kathy and well Harvey and Janine. Hey, great to see you and hear from you. It is. It's been an interesting week as always. Um. Oh yeah. Oh okay yeah. Gwendolyn yeah you totally get it too. Um. So yeah. Early voting sometimes is just helpful depending on what your situation is Tuesday. Um, yeah, I was just reading the other day that over the years there have been many suggestions that for holidays that they should get the um, the election day off as a national holiday so that people can vote. And it's been stopped by various political interests because they don't want everybody voting. How wrong is that, right? So, but yeah, I totally think it should be a national holiday, considering some of the holidays that we've had. Yeah. it would be it would be it would be a thing. Yes. And yeah, Harvey, I mean that's yeah, definitely everybody, especially if you're registered, you should vote. Everybody should vote if they can. Uh, while maybe your single vote won't make a difference, if everybody thinks that way, then it will make a difference. So you've just got to not think that way. It's better as a whole. And good, great to hear that, Jan. Um, Oh, wow, okay. So yeah, I mean, and that's the other thing. All states are kind of different, aren't they? Um, yeah, it is a very different thing. Uh, so yeah, it's voting is always strange, but yeah, that's gonna start coming up. You're gonna be seeing a lot of news articles about it with recommendations for this is who's running and different local propositions that are on the ballot and all of that kind of thing. It's going to be yeah a lot. That's going to be the next few weeks of most of the local press. So something for you to enjoy. uh, um, oh well yeah okay that's that's an interesting point. If you can't be bothered to study the candidates and issues, perhaps you just shouldn't vote. Okay, I can see that reasoning. At the same time, uh, I mean, I think that you also have the right to not be bothered. Um, if you want to, if you want to vote but not be informed, that's your right too. So I still think it's better if everybody vote. I don't know. I don't know. Some people think everybody should. It should be an obligation where you're mandatory required to vote. I don't know. I don't know about that. That's an interesting one. And I think it's sort of like the whole you have the right not to vote, just like you have the right having the right to vote is maybe a good thing. Um, uh, yeah, politicians can be that way. Uh, yeah, yeah, and that's the thing. It's I'm very much in favor of a national holiday on election day. I think it would drive a lot more people to vote, and some because of the ability to go, it's a lot easier for them to vote. But some, I think it just feels like a quid pro quo, is not in this case not necessarily a bad thing. You know, I got a day off, therefore I should vote as sort of a an obligation to warrant the day off. Otherwise, you're just getting a day off for free and you really don't deserve it. So, yeah, I mean, something like that. And it's certainly a better holiday than some of our holidays that we have. So, why not? Why not indeed? Anyway, we're getting off topic already, and not that I ever really stay on topics regardless. But yeah, yeah. I mean, and speaking of voting or the not not being able to vote or representation or well, holidays in general. Actually, I guess this all kind of relates a little bit. Something came to my attention recently, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that. And let's jump over here and actually go back one to yeah, the medieval peasants and talk about them and how there are uh, I know there is a topic, right? That there's a lot of misconceptions about uh, well, about that time period. That they were considered the Dark Ages, and it was a violent and ignorant time. Uh, and I mean, there's some truth to that, but it's normally set up afterwards. I mean, people described it that way in the Renaissance to point ill at that time period. Some of it was just because there weren't as many records of that time, and there were a few bad things that happened, especially in the church around that time. So being able to label it as such gave them that ability to justify it in a way. Uh, Sometimes it's just that type of routine, but some it's turned into a bit of a pejorative where it's a way to look at that time as a negative and just say it was a bad time overall. And that idea has kind of festered over the centuries. That the idea of feudalism uh, as a society in which people were always oppressed. I mean, AKA the whole Monty Python thing with, help, help, I'm being repressed. Come see the violence inherent in the system. I mean, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. But one thing that kind of popped in my head was this meme that I've been kind of seeing here. I'll jump on that. That's been going around for the past, well, several years. And I see it pop up on my feeds on Facebook and elsewhere regularly. Usually every 3 to 6 months, I'll see another version of it or the same one kind of resurrected. How have any of you seen this? It's the one where they say medieval peasants worked only about 150 days in a year, and that that we work more than a medieval peasant, and the point being that we're overworked. That's generally it. Um, so I mean, have any of you seen that at all? I mean, has it popped up in your feeds through your searches on the internet or just jumped on? I mean, kind of curious if any of you have seen that. Okay, Maris has seen it. I mean, some of you may have even seen it and just disregarded it, which is totally viable. I will not fault you for just ignoring memes. They're kind of like sometimes they're like commercials. You just kind of turn off. But yeah, yeah. I mean, it's meant to kind of make us feel better, or worse, or whatever, just to say, um, okay, okay. Um, yeah, yeah, yeah. I did that for you, Gwendolyn. I fact checked it because I'm that type of guy. Because I was curious, and I've been seeing it pop up, and it's just been kind of a not sure. I mean, if you look at it over here, you can kind of see the medieval peasants worked only about 150 days in a year. The church believed it was important to keep them happy with frequent mandatory holidays. I mean, that just screams political agenda, right? Uh, it just, yeah. I mean, first of all, they're saying that medieval peasants worked only 150 days a year, pointing to a problem. Then they're saying that, but the reason why is because the church cared about people. So it's pro-church and anti-current government. That's essentially where we are with it. It's saying that this is a problem, we need to take care of it, and we know how to fix it, kind of thing. It's trying to incense you about something, and that's a very popular thing to do with politics these days. Float these types of things out, see how they resonate with people, and then make that the um, new big hot button issue of the political campaigns coming up. So yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, and okay, you're already asking questions. I need to jump on this. Okay, well, a few things bothered me about this besides the political aspect. Also, the number 150. It just sounds like a made-up number, right? I mean, you're talking about statistics and going through all of these research and finding out it's never 150 or 200. Not exactly. I mean, if you're going to say somewhere around 150, I'd be okay with that. But that's not what they're saying. They're saying they worked 150 days a year, period. It just sounds like a made up number that is easy for people to remember. So that's what they go with: 150, 200, 250. Those are the types of numbers they go with. And it just sounds fake. So my first instinct was no, I don't really, too many red flags on this. And, I researched it and came up with it wasn't just in my Facebook feeds. I mean, I would find it in articles. And the far side over there is the far right is from Reddit. So that they've popped up for this last several years all over the place. And I kept searching to try to find out where they all originated from because they often don't say. And I finally tracked it down to an article back from 2013 from the New York Post, where there might have been an earlier one, but this was the earliest one I could find. And uh, it actually attributes where those stats come from. Medieval peasants got a lot more vacation time than you, economist, according to an economist. And right. I mean, that's yeah. We're getting to that, Harvey. Don't worry. Uh, um, yeah. So it was interesting, but the New York Post is well, how do I put? It's a conservative. Well, okay, it's a daily tabloid newspaper owned by Rupert Murdoch. So it's not exactly known as this is where you get credible news. I mean, they do some credible news, sure, but yeah. um, right? Exactly. Seems a little unbelievable. Um, and yeah, and Jan, you're totally right, and I'm coming to that too. You're not wrong. Uh, that yeah, farmers they tend to work every day, but of course that's one of the also misconceptions about medieval life that they were all farmers. I mean, there were lots of craftsmen and other. I mean, peasants weren't just farmers. There's a wide that term is very general, and that bothers me a lot too. Um, yeah, right, right. You're totally right, Janine. Yeah, that's how these. I mean, it comes across more as water cooler news, people just gossiping and it becoming fact according to the community because people just talked about it too much. And that's the thing. So anyway, the New York Post article it did reference a source, an economics book written in 1991 by Juliet B. Shore called "The Overworked American: The Unexpected Decline of Leisure." So I was like, okay, well, this is interesting. So I did a little research on the book from 1991. Weird, but and Juliet Shore, and it was interesting. Has anyone heard or read that book? Here, I'll jump over and show you what it is. It's anyone familiar with it at all on here? It's it. I found out that it's an economics book, but it's written for the masses. It's not written for economists. It's the whole design is to take some complex economic theories and present them in a way anyone can understand, which is laudable, definitely. But I was not familiar with it. I don't know if any of you have, but apparently it got very popular in the early '90s. So much so it really shocked the publishing company. Uh, they looked at it and it it did insanely well in 91 and 92, so much so this is the version here is the reprint in 1993, that new cover with the new forward and the whole shebang because it was very popular. And of course, especially in the 80s and 90s and everything, this topic resonated with people. It still does, obviously because of the memes, the overworked American. I mean, you don't really need to convince people too much that Americans are overworked. You just have to look at, well, Europe or most other countries, honestly. Their view of vacation time and breaks whether for holidays or whatever, is very different than America. So yeah, um, yeah. So anyway, well, this was kind of weird, and the fact that it was a, a kind of a book review or a topic review in 2013 about a book from, I mean, over 20 years earlier, just sounds weird. Um, Very weird. And the topic was about Americans being overworked, but they focused on one aspect of it from a book that really had nothing to do with the title. Not much, anyway. So it's not some more red flags. Really strange. Now, I looked up Juliet Schor, and she is a noted economist. She's an expert on essentially how Americans work, their working habits, and all of that. I mean, she is a known expert on this, and her resume is very interesting and good. I mean, she taught at Harvard for 17 years. Now she teaches at Boston College, and this was her first book, though. So her first book, it did very well, and it led to others. And she publishes a new book every 5 years or so, and they do very well. They're designed to work for to general interest book, even though it's specific about economics. So yeah, I don't know. I was still kind of like, I don't know. It's strange. I mean, she seems like an authority, but this still seems weird. Um, I'm not buying it. So yeah, yeah. I it's tough. I mean, her resume looks good. And normally a resume like that, I would be, oh, hey, yeah, okay, totally. I'm going to buy that because she's an authority. But I'm at a point in my life now where a lot of letters after somebody's name does not mean I trust them. I don't know. I think I've just come that jaded, post COVID, post um, politics, all of that. It's just I've hit a point where, it, yeah, it, even people's actions make me wonder sometimes. So yeah, I don't know. Am I the only one? Are y'all do uh, a lot of letters after somebody's name mean you trust them? Do you go in and just say, "Oh, well, the doctor must know," kind of thing? Is that your? I don't know. I guess I've just hit a jaded point in my life, but I felt I needed to read more. So the what came up next was the only thing left was I had to read the book. That's my only other option, right? That's it. I didn't know what else to do. So what did I do? I got a copy of the book and I looked through it. And it's interesting because yeah, I mean the book is about Americans. So the reference to medieval history, it's only at the beginning of chapter 3. That's it. It's a very small part of it. Um, uh, yes, as in yes, you agree, or yes, it's just me. I'm the jaded one. All of you are optimists still. I don't know. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I can see that. Uh, okay, okay. So you, well, yeah, I guess that's a good way to put it, Liz. I look at them and say, well, uh, I'll I won't trust them, but I'll say I'll do the research to see if I should. I'll put it that way. That's probably how I do it. Yes. Uh, oh, why? Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Nancy. Yeah, I research. I look at it and I'm just kind of like and I hope I'm not boring y'all too much with my whole line of thought and how I'm thinking about this, the whole progression. I could just go to the end and say this is what I found out, true or busted. Boom, we're done. But yeah, I thought it was interesting. Um, oh, why? Thank you, Damaris. I guess that's true. Um, I guess wisdom is not something you really know about yourself. Wise people don't usually think they're wise. It's others that think of them as wise. So I would say jaded, but I guess yeah, to others that's probably true. Um, Gwendolyn, I'm totally going to agree with that. Yes, Yeah. Not all PhDs are created equal. You are so right. So right. Um, uh, right, right. Yeah, and it's another other interesting topic where being good in school doesn't necessarily mean you're intelligent. It just means that you're good at working that aspect of education. I know people that never tested well. They were brilliant people, but they just were horrible at test taking. They'd have anxiety, get panic attacks, have problems. It was never easy, and they never did well in school. I mean, homework they were great. Tests horrible, and uh, written papers wonderful. I mean, they could write a 30-page paper uh, in one evening and have it be the best thing the teacher read. But it was just, yeah, the tests killed them. And so yeah, it's not always. I think you're right. It's not always the best way to judge. Um, oh wow. Well, I think anybody who worked in the nuclear plant should question everything. Personally, Harvey, that's just my opinion. But just from a safety perspective, yeah, you should question everything all the time, again and again, day after day. That's how you stay safe. But anyway, yes. Going on. Yeah, I looked at it, and it was only the beginning of chapter 3. She talked about the medieval period and peasants and how they worked, and she started off the book, or the chapter 3, I should say, saying that it's almost impossible to to get good data on how people worked in a pre-industrial time because of how it was laid out and how the concept of time didn't really exist the same way. People didn't think in terms of seconds or minutes or even hours, really. They loosely thought in days. They didn't have clocks at that point. Um, I mean, clock towers started in the 1300s. So yeah, it really, they didn't think that way. It was a very looser, more relaxed time. So she starts out by saying that, and then what does she do? She progresses with, okay, so here's the data. It's almost you really can't get accurate data, but here's the data. That's what she said. It's really weird. But once again, this was just a small section of the book used to paint an overall picture of this is why Americans are overworked and what we should do about it. So yeah, I mean, it's not wrong. Her data wasn't necessarily inaccurate as far as the general picture painted, but the specifics I kind of questioned a little bit because, well, okay, here are my issues with it. One thing, she focused on England. She gave a few reasons. One, in that when you compare it to the early American data that she had, most of those people were from England, so she wanted the crossover. I get that. And then she also said that most of the information she found was about England. And I'm going to say that's probably true in English. I mean, if she did that extra research and looked up at, there's plenty of information on medieval life in Spain or in Italy or in France, and they didn't bother to translate it. It's in Italian and Spanish and French. So it takes a lot more work to get that information. But trying to use England as a statistical approach to all of medieval Europe. Well, anybody who's been following Brexit for the last few years knows that England is not necessarily a good representation of all of Europe. Let's just say that. Okay, number two. She used the concept of church holidays to be considered days off. And I had some pretty serious issues with that. Um, Take it from somebody who's gone to services that, oh wow, gone to Greek Orthodox services, Southern Baptist, or Church of Christ, or Catholic. I mean, I've gone to a lot of different services, and rarely did I think of them as a vacation. I mean, this is a different time and a different world where you were obligated to go. It was like the church was a part of the system. It wasn't separate from it. I mean, if you were told to go, you went. It was like a work day where you went into the office for a meeting on your day off. So having it like a day off, I don't know if I would agree with church holidays as being days off necessarily. Um, so yeah, that's a little weird. Um, and okay, for the other issue I had was while she did a great job with her bibliography of showing all of her references that she got for this data, um, they were all economics books. This is about history, and all everything she referenced were old economics books from the 1940s, 50s, 60s, and a couple from the early 80s. And I'm just kind of like, I don't know. That just maybe back in '91, that data seemed more current, but yeah, I know when I was a kid, I wouldn't have used a book as a reference from 1940. I mean, I guess in some situations it might have been warranted, but economics books talking about history, not sure that's the best route. Um, yeah, yeah. So, right, right, right. uh, yeah, yeah. No, I mean, here's. I'll get into more about the religious holidays later, but yeah, that is a big question. I mean, the whole thing with religious. Well, okay, we'll talk about it now. The religious holidays thing. It's. I mean, like I go with my own book, and here you go. The Medieval Village, classic. Really, I love that one, and it's interesting in that they talk about depending on where you were, you didn't necessarily follow religious holidays. Back in the ninth century, you'd have like like around 24 is what the number they gave official church saints holidays kind of thing. But that number kept growing and growing and growing to ridiculous levels. So much so that a lot of landowners and lords and all of that, they just stopped following all of them. They'd have the core ones that they'd always followed throughout their life and for centuries ahead. But a lot of the new stuff, think of it like getting a day off for Secretary's Day. You just it's not. They have a lot of holidays now that we don't really follow, and I think that's probably true then too. And the this book covers that and talks about it some. It's a good book, The Medieval Village, G.G. Colton. I've really yeah, I've used it before to research some stuff, that and other books, but I'm a fan. Uh, uh, oh, right, okay, I will check that out. That is interesting. Okay, that's always good. Excellent, good to hear. Oh yeah, next thing you know, we'll have Life's a Fair book club. I have to do that. Uh, so yeah, now I had issues with the whole peasants concept in general because there were so many different professions in that time period. Peasants weren't just farmers. They're wow. Yeah, I mean, they had different tradesmen and craftsmen and all of these different people who had different types of jobs that not all of them were seasonal. Some, like being a farmer, it's March to September pretty much. But the rest of the other jobs, they had different timing to it. So I really don't know. I I think making a general assessment like that is bordering on impossible and naive at best. Once again, her first book. The other last thing is just directly comparing an agrarian society that is seasonal in general, like I said, to a modern capitalist society that is heavily based on time because everybody has a clock. Um, is I mean, it's not like apples and oranges. Um, it's like an apple and a brick. I mean, it's totally different. I don't I don't know if there's a direct comparison other than saying that back then, because of so many factors too numerous to list, they didn't work as many days as we did. Okay, and that's reasonable, and it's true looking at the data. But 150, yeah, no. So anyway, I looked at the book and the whole. Aside from the fact that chapter 3 was a bit flawed, I thought generally the book is very good. Uh, but I really think the number 150 was taken very out of context from how it was described. It was in a section where she was trying to talk about the how a small group in England, the wages that they had went up dramatically in a small period of time, and the cost of living didn't change. And their response was they worked less. So for a few years, they were getting paid a lot more per hour, so to speak, or per day, um, or week or month or whatever, or just a salary. Actually, it was salary pretty, but they uh they elected to work less, fewer hours, and get paid the same amount they did before, um, because for them, vacation time was more valuable than going to Disneyland, kind of because they didn't have it. So yeah, that's how they looked at it, and that was the point she was making with those numbers. But it's taken really out of context for this. I and honestly, I think those numbers were a bit off. Um, and yeah, at the very least, those numbers represented a small section of England in the late 1300s, and that's it. Putting that over all medieval peasants for a period of 1,000 years is such a gross, um, ridiculous way of presenting it that it's just wrong. So I'd say the meme is busted. It's yeah, it's just yeah, time is something the peasants did not have. They didn't understand. And trying to get that data is just impossible. So yeah, I'm just gonna say it's busted. It's totally busted. Um, so definitely. Well, and I know you're probably asking what the actual numbers are. That's tough, and I'd say it's probably anywhere from around 200 to 300 days. Um, but seriously, some of the workers that really worked hard, heavy labor workers on farms or whatever, they would work 12-hour days during the between March and September. So it was some serious work. Now, saying that they did get some time off and that they did maybe not have as much of a, um, had some holidays, probably true, and had some good, I mean, they did have different views of special events like weddings and funerals. There was a lot of pageantry and a lot of religious um, undertones with that. So they would take days off for those events. They would have 3-day festivals, all of that, and also the fact that the medieval fair, those festival days, those holidays, that's kind of the origin of the Renaissance fair. And that's where you'd have market days. So people were working on those days. Take it from take it from me. Yeah, I mean it's fun sometimes, but you're working. So yeah, there were tradesmen and everybody who were working hard to make those special events happen. So yeah, I'm not gonna buy it. I think it's a total bust for that meme, but yeah, I still say the book is good and nothing against Juliet Shore. Um, she seems to be very notable and no controversy online. She's avoided trolls entirely, which is a little scary. I think partly because this book was before the web was a thing when it came out, and the later memes never referenced her, so the trolls didn't get on board ridiculing her in any way. But good for her if she can get away with that. Uh, so anyway, that's that's the meme busting that I tried to do just for you. I hope that was interesting. Uh, and not too boring, but I do like it. I kind of went down the rabbit hole. Um, no, in the book she kind of said that the 150 days that they worked were on their main job. Let's say that. The rest were either holidays or whatever. And that's the problem. I mean, she put a lot of importance on religious holidays and treating them like they just spent the day sleeping on a hay bale, taking a nap. It just, that's not how those are. Not at all. And yeah, I don't think she quite understood the history. She looked at it as references from economics books from decades before, and I think she just didn't get it. Because those are not what I would call days off. Uh, yeah, I agree. And, that type of thing is a lot more common in Europe. And maybe that's part of the reason because there's a lot of precedent that goes back hundreds and hundreds of years in that. Now, of course, in Europe, because of industrialization, and the book talks about that a good bit, it changed a lot, and everybody got overworked. And a lot of the struggles in the 1800s with the labor movement was to go back to how things were before, because they felt that people in the 1800s were being greatly oppressed and overworked. I mean, child labor, all of that. It was a crazy thing, and that's what a lot of the late 1800s labor movement was about, trying to fix that. And eventually, it came over to America, where they tried to overhaul that to the 8-hour workday kind of thing too. But it took a while. It took a while. But anyway, that's that's that. Oh, it's already after 7:30. We went, wow. Okay. Yeah, I knew this would be a long one. Well, I wanted to talk real quick about another movie. I know last week I talked about Catherine Called Birdie and Medieval, but there's one more I felt I had to throw out there because it's just it's relevant and good. So I'll do a quick one on this, and it is called Rosaline. And Rosaline is about it's essentially the story of Romeo and Juliet told from the point of view of Romeo's ex, Rosaline. If you've ever read the play or that familiar with it, or maybe you've even just seen the movie, the reason Romeo goes to that masked ball and runs into Juliet is because he's there to see Rosaline. That's his great love, and she's referenced throughout the play by his friends because Juliet is, a secret, so they think he's still interested in her. But she's not really much of a part of the play directly. It's more reference. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting. But anyway, the story is essentially Romeo and Rosaline are in love. They get together, and it's wonderful. Um, and he tells her that he loves her, and she freezes. So she's not sure what to say, and he goes off, and they make plans to see each other at the masked ball. And she's really excited about that, and thinks, well, okay, I'll tell him I love him, and everything will be fine, and we'll take care of it. But her father is trying to get her married off because she's the youngest, um, the last of his four daughters, and wants to. All the others are married. So he's trying to encourage her to do that, but she keeps walking out and avoiding it. Um, oh, yeah. Gwendolyn's asking what platform it's on. It's on Hulu. I was about to say Hulu streaming is it there. Uh, and it is in, in comes Dario Pinza, I believe his name is, as a suitor potential. And there's some conflict there. And they get stuck out on his boat on the day of the mask ball, and she can't attend. And in comes Juliet, runs into Romeo, sparks ensue, and they fall in great love. And then Romeo proceeds to ghost Rosaline. Yeah, like you do. And she tries to figure it out. She finds out that Juliet and Romeo are something's going on, and Juliet is her cousin. She just came back into town. So she befriends Juliet, finds out all about it, and is pretty upset, and decides she's going to break up the romance and get Romeo back. Sound like a bit of a Shakespeare comedy? Well, that's kind of what they were going for, and it kind of works. Taking a tragedy of Romeo and Juliet and turning it into the situation comedy of a Shakespeare play. Brilliant. I have to say, I liked it. It was very good. Surprisingly good. Now, the interesting thing is, it was based on a book, When You Were Mine, from 2012 by Rebecca Searle, and it was essentially a modern version of Romeo and Juliet told from the perspective of Rosaline. So it's modern times. So what they did was, you go back to Rosaline, that when they made the movie, they just set it back in Shakespeare times and used the same dialogue. So they're using the modern vernacular for language, and it's all that type of thing. And they don't take themselves too seriously. It's a fun time. Movie's only about an hour and a half, and it is well acted. Uh, just like Catherine Called Birdie, I mean, it all relies on the main actress they got to play Rosaline, Caitlin Dever. and she does a great job. She carries the film, and it's wonderful. But the supporting cast is wonderful too. Um, I mean, you have Minnie Driver plays the nurse from Romeo and Juliet, and nobody does snarky like Minnie Driver, so she's perfect. And Bradley Whitford, you might remember him from as Josh Lyman from The West Wing, plays her father and does a great job. And yeah, I mean, the rest is kind of like a who's who of Gen Z Hollywood, with Caitlin Denver and Isabel Merced and Kyle Allen. They're all in these upcoming films, that are a big deal. So yeah, it's well cast. I mean, it's a good story. It's, like I said, only an hour and a half, and it's fun. They don't take themselves too seriously. They make fun of themselves. They make fun of Shakespeare, but the story is still real, and it's fun. It's just a fun uh, chuckle fest, is how I'd phrase it. You'll like it. So I recommend it if you can. Hulu, something to check out. So I guess we'll call it there because it's already 7:42. This turned into a late show. Sorry about that. But I hope it was interesting. Learn something new every time. And do check out Rosaline if you have access to Hulu. And yeah, uh, have a good week. I look forward to seeing you for next week's show when it is on Halloween night. So wow, a little spooky. We'll see what I come up with. Uh, and like the couple of days after that, I'll be on the road to go to Louisiana Fair. So always interesting. So remember, have a good week. Take care. Oh, you know what? I never do. I didn't do Fair Maps. You're totally right. I totally missed Fair Maps. Kurt, thank you. You saved me. I almost forgot that. Wow. I was just gonna jump on and totally forget Fair Map, wasn't I? I'm a bad bard sometimes. Okay. Well, it's an easy one. I'll go real quick with it. Um, I'll go real quick. It's an easy one, no problem at all. Yeah, let's just jump into that and do it. Okay, so real quick, we have the Pennsylvania Renaissance Fair, which the theme is Halloween days and spooky nights. It's in Manheim, Pennsylvania, and then going over to Ohio, Renaissance Festival. It's these are both their last weekend. The theme is tricks or treats. So everybody's doing the Halloween theme this weekend. Shocker, I know. Carolina Renaissance Festival over in Huntersville, North Carolina. Halloween days and spooky nights. It's their theme, and they've got 4 weeks left. Yeah, all the northern fairs are kind of, yeah, it's getting too cold at this point. And jumping down to Guadeloupe Renaissance Festival in Dauphin Island, Dauphin Island, Alabama. It's only on Saturday. Then going over to the Texas Renaissance Festival is still going on. Their theme is All Hallows Eve and Todd Mission, Texas, 4 weeks left. Jumping over to California, we have the All Hallows Fantasy Fair and Angels Camp, California, only 1 weekend. And then the Escondido Renaissance Fair in Escondido, California, that has 2 weeks left. So there you go. Yeah, I'm not going to worry about Seven Reasons. We're already it's already too late for that. I don't want to push it, but we'll take care of that next week. So yeah, appreciated, but we'll end it there. So have a good week, enjoy, and remember, I know this is going to sound very Douglas Adams, but it's a tough fair out there, and the weather's changing, so you got to know where your cloak is. So make sure you have it with you at all times. At the very least, keep it in the car. You never know. Take care, have a good week, and I'll see you soon.